Well, this is Betting Weekly Extra Time Champions League edition. We are back for the third qualifying round tie, second leg of Europe's premier club competition. The playoffs are getting ever closer, as are the riches of the group stages. And speaking of riches, hopefully our handicappers will point you in the right direction of some, or just a little bit anyway. You're with Dan Roebuck, and alongside me, two of the very best around to talk you through the midweek card across Europe. Steve, a profitable week last week, some really good selections from yourself and Will. I always think that second legs should be easier for bettors, but I guess that means they're easier for traders and odds compilers as well. Is that a theory you subscribe to or not?
Hello, Dan. Hello, RJ. How are you guys doing? I hope you had a great weekend. And you are absolutely right, Dan. This show was in profit last week. We're already up near the +2 unit mark. Myself and Will combined pretty well. And I agree with you there. I think the second legs should, in theory, in a lot of ways, be easier to bet on. Certainly in running, I always say second halves of these matches, you just know who's got to go for it, who hasn't got to go for it. There's always exceptions, though. For example, like the Praga game, the Galatasaray game, where matches look done. Then I think I really find it difficult pre-match then, because one team might just play for a 0-0 and completely block it out, and the other team might not even believe. But in most of the time, I do think second legs are easier, but the books aren't daft. They know that as well, so they adjust their lines accordingly.
RJ, same question to you, really, and the fact that we've got a little bit more form to go on. When we spoke last week, yes, we had some second round qualifiers, some first round qualifiers for some teams who made it through, obviously, and a little bit of domestic form. I know you're across plenty of the world leagues as well, and the summer leagues obviously give a bit of an indication, but the main European leagues have kicked off as well this weekend, or a lot have. Does that make it a little bit easier as well for bettors maybe to get in the groove for these tough Champions League qualifiers?
Yeah, absolutely. And hello, Dan, to you and Steve. Great to be here. But I agree. I think having the matches under the belt for some of these teams is crucial, because typically they just play friendlies up until the point of these competitive matches. So it's really tough to gauge. And yeah, I think depending on the first leg, like, for example, we'll talk about it in some of the matches that Steve and I have tipped. There is usually a good setup for whether it's goals or like a side who typically is strong at home down going into the second leg, right? It creates a lot of opportunity for bettors to find the right spots, assuming prices are appropriate. And yeah, it should make things easier for us bettors based on the first leg matchups.
I know we've got some really interesting, some really good plays from RJ coming your way for everyone watching and listening when it comes to second half goals. And I tend to think that, and Steve, you mentioned this, look, teams are going to have to go for it at some stage. We know there's a lot more added on time across every single league, unless you were watching the German Super Cup final at the weekend, which had just 2 minutes. It was a bit of a mercy whistle for Bayern as they were stuffed by Leipzig. But we only had one goal past the 90 last midweek. Steve, I guess we're looking at more, surely, given the game state, the context of the ties, and potentially officials maybe adding just a few more minutes on.
Yeah, and I was actually on over 3.25 in that German Super Cup match, so I wasn't too happy about it myself. The one match that didn't have any time added on this week. But yeah, I mean, I was just watching the La Liga Barcelona last night.
What was that, 25 minutes?
It was, yeah. I mean, I think 115 minutes of total action was played. Now, I'm not denying it probably was legitimate with the amount of start and stop things. But we've got to get used to this in football now. I think eventually, Nigel Seeley made this good point, I think, in the Premier League show last week that he was on with you, that the big teams over the course of a season, that's going to suit them, because in the end, they're just going to grind down the opponents. You're going to see a lot of goals scored in the 100th minute and beyond this year, I think. So, yeah, we do have to factor that in now. It's one of those, if you're taking an in-running over, you're probably at least 6 or 7. And that is a nice relief, especially if teams have to go for it. So times are changing. You always have to evolve in betting, always. And in 10 years' time, who knows where we'll be at? Then maybe there'll be like a stop clock and it'll be start-stop. I don't know.
I'd have that. I'd take that like futsal. I don't mind that at all. As soon as the ball goes out, and just one last thing before we get into selections here, RJ, I'll throw this one to you. What I noticed about the Premier League really in England this weekend. This is designed to stop time wasting. Well, there wasn't a lot of time wasting around, but there was still a lot of added on time because they were putting on a minute for goal celebrations. Every little injury, they were putting on an extra 30 seconds here and there, substitutions and so on and so forth. So it's nothing to do with time wasting. It's just adding on minutes. I mean, that seems a little bit unsustainable, but for the bettors, it's like, well, okay, a keeper hasn't really sort of messed around for a few more seconds here. We just, I think, know we're going to get it across nearly every single game.
Yeah, it seems that way. And if, you know, I'm a totals better. I typically target goals, so I don't particularly mind extra time, especially if we're looking for that one last goal in the dying minutes. But yeah, because of that whole new card rule, right, and everything, with the time wasting, you would expect that to have a lot of influence. But I agree. The matches that I watched the Brentford Spurs match yesterday morning. That was beautiful. That was a great match to kick off the day. But yeah, with 5 or 6 minutes extra time in one of the halves, I was wondering where it really came from. I mean, the first half I could see with goals, but I'm a little leery on that. But I think at this point they're gonna kind of settle in as the games and matches go on. They'll probably have some discussion where it's like 5-6 minutes, maybe average per half at this point, the way we're going.
I think we're going to get some shrewd bettors here, going to start predicting what sort of minutes you're going to get and then react to the market and play in certain ways. Let's get some selections here, shall we? We've got 4 games coming under the spotlight. We've got 6 picks, 3 from each of our handicappers. All the fixtures on Tuesday. I think that's because we've got Super Cup action, of course, on Wednesday. We're going to kick off here with the game that's 1 p.m. Eastern. This is Molde against the Faroese side. And I know what they're called, but I didn't know that previously. So Steve, RJ, both got a selection in this. Before we get to the tip, how are they pronounced? Steve?
Well, I just know them as KI Klaksvik.
Okay.
That will do for me.
That's not bad. RJ?
Klaksvik. That's what I had ready to go even before the show.
This is from my Faroese friend. Stand by, listeners, viewers.
Klaksvik. Klaksvik.
Not bad from you two. Not bad at all. I take it all back. I thought I might have stumped you, but I haven't. Let's get some picks from this one then. Mulder short price favourites -455 and Klaksvik +900. Faroe side, Steve, 2-1 up from the first leg. Why are Mulder so short here? Is it just that historical look? We can't possibly believe that a Faroe side are going to make it through to the latter stages of qualifying for the Champions League. What's the situation here with Mulder being such a short price?
Well, the interesting thing, Dan, here is I actually wanted to talk about this match on last week's show. I was just desperate to find a pick for the game because it's such a great narrative, is this one. KI Klaksvik are the first ever...
Don't get cocky, but go on, keep going.
First ever Faroese side that have guaranteed themselves to be in one of the UEFA group stages. Even if they lose every match in qualifying now, they will be in the Conference League groups. It's the first ever time this has happened for a Faroese team. That league is, no disrespect to it, but it's not a particularly great league. Historically, it's been a terrible league. It is actually improving because there's still another team from the Faroes involved in Conference League qualifying called B36. Why are Molde so short here? Because half of the team, half of the squad, the KI squad, are actually part-time footballers. There's genuinely there's a part-time electrician, carpenter, accountant, fisherman in this team. So we've not got a problem if the floodlights go out, have we? They're going to be fixed quite quickly. So that sort of reputation thing can make a big difference. But also you've got to be logical. Not all of these players are in full-time training. However, on the flip side, there is also been some foreign imports into this league. And some genuine... I looked at this squad, and there's some decent players who would hold their own in the other Scandinavian leagues. Vegard Forum, for example. So that's the reason why they're so short at -400. That wouldn't... Molde got to win the game, otherwise they're out. The first leg, incredibly, KI beat them 2-1 from 1-0 down. And my actual tip for the game, my pick for the match is KI just to score a goal. over 0.5 team total for KI at -136. That's all I need from them, 1 goal or more. And I think they'll get one because I've watched both of their away matches in these Champions League qualifiers. At Ferencváros, the Hungarian champions, they scored 3 times. And then at Häcken, the Swedish champions, another 3 times they scored. So I think I've watched them play away from home. They will go on the counter-attack and cause Molde some problems. In the previous round, HJK Helsinki came here and parked about 10 double-decker buses and eventually lost 2-0. But they offered nothing at the other end against a Molde team who can be defensively fragile. We saw at the weekend domestically, they conceded 2 goals against a team called Sandefjord, who are not particularly great. And I think KI will, at some point, might need a goal anyway, but they're going to come here and have a go. So I like it. Just all I need from them, 1 goal at -136. Simple as that one, Dan.
Let's move on to RJ's selection here, because the thing is, when we look for overs, and not to give RJ's selection in full, but we're looking for goals here. Whenever I look for goals, sometimes if you've got a short price favourite, you think, well, they will score X amount. But a lot of the time with the over 2.5, over 3.5, even bigger, you've almost got to, the underdog has got to contribute, or at least you've got to believe that the underdog has got to contribute when it comes to total goals in a game. And I suspect you're going down that route with your selection here, RJ. Talk us through your pick.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. So as Steve said, I expect KI to get on the board here. I think, Steve, it's a fairly generous price for their performances thus far. We really have no reason to believe they won't get on the score sheet based on their fact that, Häcken, Ferencváros, as you stated, those are very strong sides historically, typically domestically, and at this competition. They've been here, they understand. And the fact that Klaksvik, I think they're beyond that. They're getting lucky, or they're stretching the limit. I think this is a pretty legit team full of part-timers, which is hard to believe, but they obviously have something going on. They have a Faroese legend, Paul Kleksgaard, who's been with the team since 2012. He's played in 335 matches for the team. He's scored 195 goals during his time. He's very well known in the Faroese. And funny enough, I actually know the admin for this Klaksvik side, so I'm kind of in contacts, and even he stated it's pretty hard to believe the run that they have, and every once in a while in sports, right, these kind of runs happen, and I don't know, Steve, it wouldn't be the biggest shock of my life to see them advance here, and I say that because of Molde's just defensive woes at times. They're pretty strong at home, however, right? They've scored at least 2 goals in their last 11 out of 13 home matches. And that's against much stronger sides, arguably, right, than this Faroese side. So based on the fact of where we are here, as Dan, as you alluded to, they come into this match down 1 goal, right? So they lost on the road 2-1. They come back at home. They know they have to at least get another goal to tie the split here. And I see it, honestly, a 3-1 type win for this Molde side, but I also wouldn't be shocked to see a 2-2 type match, right? And then see this end for the away side. But I think at this point here, I'm really leaning on the home side for 2+ goals, with the away side at least getting 1 here. At the very least, I think we have a very solid chance of getting half the return back, but obviously looking for that 4th goal for full profit. So looking at over 3.25 goals at -120, just to be clear.
Yeah, looks like a really good bet, though. And incidentally, Klaksvik here, +220 just to qualify. Might not be the worst play, as RJ has suggested. Let's get to Sparta Prague, Copenhagen. This is a 1 p.m. kickoff Eastern. Called this game for local TV in the UK last week. And you could argue that both had chances to win it. Copenhagen late on had a really good opportunity. Sparta are the favourites here, +115. Last I looked, Copenhagen +213. And check all the lines here, because we found out last week that they are jumping around all over the place. And I put this running order together late last night, so there's probably a fair few changes. But there were opportunities for both teams last week, RJ. And again, you're looking for goals in this one.
Yeah, so I'll be transparent. This match was a little bit tricky to look at, but I wanted to target it just because of the fact, typically when you see 0-0 stalemates in the first leg, right, these sides are both, I'd say, equally as strong defensively, offensively, a very evenly matched matchup, which is why they ended up in a 0-0 draw. But I think we're going to look to see this open up in the second leg. Both sides, believe it or not, are pretty strong, obviously, at this point on the road. Although Sparta at home has been a little bit inconsistent. Even domestically, they haven't really been that great on defense. They've allowed at least a couple goals in their last three matches. So I looked at these matches. So when I look at the Champions League matches, right, we're taking two teams that play in different leagues domestically. It's kind of challenging to find spots. I usually look at shots on target. I try to target corners, but what I liked here was historically over the last 25 matches, right, looking at it from a numbers perspective, Sparta and Copenhagen combined have seen over 1.5 goals in 62% of their matches in their respective home and away spots. The first halves usually start off maybe one goal. They're typically low scoring matches. In fact, there's like a 65% chance of one goal, but then it drops to about a 29 to 32% chance of a second goal in the first half. So again, I'm looking at this from a statistics perspective. That's kind of how I approach these matchups, but at least one goal is expected 80% of the time between these two sides. So we have a very good shot of one, right? Clearly. That second one is going to be the wild card, but I expect another potentially slow start in this match, and I think we could see things open up here in the second half. So again, from a pure numbers perspective, this looked like one of the stronger plays that I found related to a second half goal market. Okay, so we were looking at over 1.5 in the second, over 1.5 goals in the second half, RJ? Oh, yeah, so we're looking at over 1.5 goals at plus 100, even money. Even money for that one. That's Sparta Prague, Copenhagen. Let's move on to Dinamo Zagreb against AEK Athens. This is 2 p.m. Eastern kickoff again on the Tuesday. The Croatian side of the favourite plus 120. AEK Athens plus 215. We've been talking about the fact that second legs are different and in theory they should be easier. Well, this one, Steve, isn't a second leg, is it? This is a first leg. Just explain to people why if they don't know already.
Yeah, well, the first leg was postponed, unfortunately, due to a tragic incident. A Greek fan was killed, was stabbed. In fact, there was a lot of big crowd unrest. I think over 100 people were arrested by Greek police. And what's happened now is the two legs have been switched around. So we're now going to be in Zagreb for the first leg, and then at the weekend, we're going to be in Greece again. I'm not actually sure what's going to be happening with the crowds and things, whether or not it's going to be behind closed doors or not. I do know UEFA are strongly considering not having Athens as a venue for the final of the Conference League now at the end of this season. It's due to host it. So, yeah, that's a real shame. Really tragic. Back onto on-field matters now. Dinamo Zagreb against AEK Athens. And I actually think it suits Dinamo now to have the first leg at home. They're really strong at home. They've been one of these teams down the years who always seem to qualify for the Champions League. And then when they make the group stages, everyone's kind of betting against them in some sort of form because they're just not up to the level of the really big teams. So in qualifying, you want to be on their side. And I'm going to be taking them here on a minus 0.25. Asian handicap at the current price is at minus 120. Now, that handicap basically means if the match ends a draw, we only lose half of our stake, which is obviously not as bad as a full loss. But, I mean, I can't imagine AEK Athens winning this match in Croatia. I just can't see it happening. So I think at very best, they're going to be getting a draw. Dinamo won, absolutely smashed Astana here in the most recent round. The game was done before the second leg. And I'm not saying it's going to be 4 or 5-0 again, but I'd be surprised if they don't put up at least a 1-goal win. I think Will White said this on the show last week. It was actually going to be one of his picks, Dinamo plus a quarter. They are the better team out of the two. In terms of the actual leagues, the Croatian champions are always generally going to be better than any Greek team. It's just the way it is. They've got some good players within their ranks, right from the goalkeeper through to the striker. They've got a good spine to the team. And this home stadium is a bit of a fortress. And there's going to be quite a strong atmosphere. I just think it just makes an awful lot of sense. I expected them to be about minus 130 on the money line, Dan. And we can get minus 120 on this, minus a quarter Asian handicap, which I just think it represents a ton of value. If you bet this 10 times, I don't think you're going to be losing fully, maybe one and a half times out of 10. It just screams value to me.
I don't quite understand this line, to be truthful with you. I mean, especially seeing AEK hasn't played a competitive match since May. So I'm a little surprised to see this at this price, Steve. I think it's a great value opportunity for what it's worth myself.
Speaking of money lines that may well be wrong, it surprises me that Rangers are moneyline favourites against Servette in the last game we're going to preview. Both got selections in this one, both going for goals. But I don't know, people get transfixed with Rangers, I think. I know they did well with their qualifier last year against PSV, but 2-1 lead from the first leg. I mean, this is, Steve, typical sort of Scottish Premiership team. And maybe the way the odds compilers are framing this one as if the job is almost done. I'm not suggesting Servette are world beaters, but I might have had them each year too. I don't know. Servette ran about plus 215 at the moment. Rangers plus 115, draw plus 250. Rangers only need a draw to go through, of course. But it's surprising me a little bit. They're just a shade better than even money.
You've said it yourself there, Dan. You know, they don't have to win the game. They can draw this match or even lose the match in theory and go through to the next round. So I never, ever like betting on teams that don't have to win. It's just one of my sort of staples of betting, really. Sometimes I will do it, but you know, when a draw is good enough, then I'm always questionable. I like the goals again here. Both teams to score cash for me last week in this fixture. I would have taken the same again. And then I realized, hold on a minute, 1-1 is no good for Servette at all. So I might as well go for the goals, because if it's 1-1 with, say, 5-10 minutes to go, they are just going to have to go for it. And, you know, it will leave up gaps at both ends of the field. So I'll go with over 2.75 goals in this game, minus 103, which, again, for me, that seems generous based on what I saw last week. It was a 2-1 win for Rangers. I think have they missed a trick? You know, they've played against 10 men for most of the second half, and they only managed to beat them 2-1. I feel like they should have maybe got 3 or 4 goals there, put them to the sword and put this tie to bed. They've given Servette a chance. David Deline got that red card. He's going to be suspended. They've had red cards in both of their last 2 matches now. And I think the reason, it's not because they're a dirty team. It's because they're quite a frantic team. You watch Servette play, they're really high press, high energy, in your face sort of football team, and that can generate mistakes even if a team doesn't want to be dirty. So watch out for that. Maybe look at the cards market here. I think Rangers will go through, but I think Servette are going to give them an almighty scare in some form whatsoever. So I really like over 2.75 goals. I think they'll come out strong. And like I said, if it is that 1-1 draw with 10-15 minutes to go, I think someone will then get a second goal at the other end. So over 2.75 goals at minus 103. I think this is going to be a really good match to watch as a neutral.
Could get a bit chaotic towards the end, which is what, RJ, we're hoping for with your selection, I think.
Yeah, we are, Dan. So similar to the previous match that I just talked about, I'm looking at a second half bet here as well. So I'm targeting over 1.5 goals in the second half at minus 107 in this match. As Steve alluded to, Servette are kind of a bouncy side, we'll call it, right? They're not typically well on defense. I think they have a lot of goal in their last 8 competitive matches, even domestically for that matter. Rangers are obviously, I wouldn't say obviously, but Rangers are the stronger side. And, you know, at this point, they can essentially just sit around and protect that one goal lead that they have. But I think that's going to be a problem for them if they do that. I think this could also, because of the stakes here, right? They're either team's kind of trying not to make a mistake to give up that lead and or to fall further behind, specifically for Servette. They don't want to go 2 goals back against a strong Rangers side. So I think we could see this match again, because of the dynamic and the nature of where we are at this point, start a little bit slower and pick up in the second half. And based on statistics here, based on their last 25 matches, 62% chance of over 1.5 goals in the second half. And, hopefully see a slow start and then see things turn up towards the end.
I think two really good plays for Servette-Rangers. Really fancy goals in that one. Really good work, good analysis as ever. Let's just remind everyone of your selection. Steve, your three for this midweek cards for the Champions League qualifiers.
Yeah, KI Klaksvik just to score a goal over 0.5 team total at -136. That's against Molde. Dinamo Zagreb minus 0.25 Asian handicap -120. And Servette against Rangers over 2.75 goals at -103. And I absolutely love RJ's picking that Rangers match as well.
Yeah, I'm liking the pronunciations as well. I did a bit of work for UEFA a few years ago. I was worried about pronunciations from everyone on this show, but you're all very good. RJ, give us your three picks, and then we'll get a best bet from both of you.
Yeah, you bet. So Molde versus Klaksvik over 3.25 goals at -120. Sparta Prague versus Copenhagen over 1.5 goals in the second half at +100 even money. And the last pick is Servette versus Rangers. Second half over 1.5 goals at -107. And just a shout out to Steve. I worked with Steve a lot over the summer. He was my pronunciation guru, as I'll say. He helped me a lot.
We've been training.
We're in good hands.
We've been training RJ up ready.
Well,
for
I didn't want to pull you up on one, but Molde.
See, that's I'll
in,
jot it in my books.
As in Scully and Molde.
We were doing South Korean pronunciations in the summer, Dan. So this is a piece of cake compared to those.
I've got a book somewhere, or a PDF of everything. It came officially from UEFA. I'll try and dig it out and pass it on. Best bets before we go. The best bet. If bettors wanted one bet on the midweek card of your three, RJ, you go first. What would it be?
I think this is a pretty easy decision for me. It'd be Servette versus Rangers over 1.5 goals in the second half would be my top choice.
Steve?
It's got to be that Servette Rangers over 2.75 goals. We really need that match to go mad, don't we? In the second half especially. But I think it will. I really do.
So do I. Double tick in the one box for the Servette Rangers game. We're looking for goals in that one. That wraps it up. Betting Weekly Extra Time Champions League edition. Remember, kickoff times vary on the Tuesday, but all the games are on the Tuesday. Don't forget, take advantage of the in-play markets as well with Bet Rivers. Many thanks to Steve and to RJ from all of us, though for now, it is goodbye.